in our actual news, we have our first bit of renewals that have been announced, and we've picked a few because we've tried doing it in the past, but that gets way too time consuming because it's like, oh, here's all the shows that got renewed on Fox. They've actually, get this, Fox has renewed a science fiction show that's not the X-Files. Holy shit! Like
Well,
that's
to be fair, Fox didn't renew the X-Files for a long time.
well, okay, but they renewed this last one, and before then they had track records of not really renewing science fiction shows. I'm not counting Gotham in that because that's not really science fiction in the way that we are going for here. I don't know. It's okay. They also renewed the Orville, and where I am proud of that. It's also, there's also some other things with that too, because they're saying it might not be coming out next fall. It might come out later and all that stuff because apparently Seth MacFarlane has not started writing any of the episodes. But I'm cool with it. If it means we're gonna get good quality stuff from the Orville, great. But anyways, they renewed The Gifted for season 2. This is the X-Men Mutants TV show that is from the creator Matt Nix, who did Burn Notice, and it's about the Stryker family. They find out that their kids are mutants, and boom, here they go, having to run away when their dad is one of the people who works with the government to lock up all the mutants after a big incident happened. Beat brings up a good thing in our chat. Wondered how a Disney-fied, he says McFarlane, but even, I mean, with the fact that we had over, I believe it was before we left, that Disney and Fox have agreed to a deal that we probably won't see the likes of for a year and a half if it comes to fruition. I do wonder about that, but at the same time, looking at this, I'm excited.
Am I wrong? Isn't Fox TV channel not a part of it? I know FX is, but I thought the Fox TV channel they were keeping.
Yeah,
so the production company is. So would the production company
be
shows that are currently ordered and have series already out? That I guess that's something that
what was excluded. What was excluded was the Fox affiliates,
right?
So that would mean the Fox channel is not a part of the deal, and then the Fox News channels,
right?
Were not. So they kept their news division. They kept the affiliates, probably because they knew that deal wouldn't go through. Like, to have the Fox affiliates would then become,
because Disney already owns one of the 4 major broadcasting channels.
Yeah, but they will own the production companies and all that.
And I think they own FX and FXX.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
which is still, I mean, that's another point of, well, we've got a X-Men spin-off show on Fox, and we have another X-Men spin-off show on FX with Legion. So because it's a production company, you're right, it could affect both, but it seems more likely that it would affect Legion because it would be on their own broadcasting channel, as opposed to the show that we've been making that's been picked up and renewed on this other channel that we don't own. We should just keep making it as we make it for them. Or if we want to sabotage them, we can break the show and ruin this rating success that Fox is getting from the Orville right now.
Yeah.
That's an aside. As far as The Gifted, now one of my questions, because I haven't watched the show, because I really am not super interested in the mainstream X-Men cinematic universe films or shows. Well, like I like Legion because Legion's weird, and because it's a guy who did the Fargo show. I like Deadpool because Deadpool is a comedy that gets to make fun of everything. I'm interested in New Mutants, but all of the overall X-Men films after X-Men 2, none of them have really worked for me. And that includes the Wolverine movies and even Logan. I thought Logan was fine. I'm not enamored with it that other people are, but I totally dig that other people got what they were looking for in a Wolverine movie finally. So my question is in relation to The Gifted. The last few X-Men movies have all been taking place in the past. Now, the Gifted, I assume, takes place in the present.
So the Gifted is, I don't believe the Gifted is in the X-Men cinematic universe. It's their own, it's like their own universe. Basically, an event like what happened in Logan. Actually, with how it sounds, I'm picturing more like what happened in the first Civil War comic to kick off Civil War. Something like that happened. Like, big event where, a mutant's powers got out of control and explosion, killed a bunch of people, both mutants and humans. So the humans overcorrected by basically creating these Sentinel services, which is to capture and contain all the mutants. And that's where we're getting at here.
Okay,
this is
for some reason, because of the fact that Bryan Singer was a part of the first episode and producer on the series, may not be a producer going forward, but because of all that, I had assumed that it was actually related to the cinematic universe, and so that was my question, because the continuity for the Marvel Cinematic Universe is in a weird, or the X-Men Cinematic Universe is in a weird place already before this deal, because they went back in time and broke all this shit, and then they've been back in time the whole time. We haven't seen anything of where it pays off, except for Deadpool, which kind of exists as its own thing, and Logan, which was supposed to be the future again, where a bunch of stuff has changed. So it's, and that's really the crux of why I don't like any of the X-Men movies now. So it just broke everything about how stuff is supposed to work together and just made this whole mismatch of it doesn't matter, just don't think about it, just enjoy the movie. Well, I might if the movies were even that good, but you're giving me nothing. Like here's the thing, though. I don't have any love for it.
Here's the thing, though. Yes, you had Bryan Singer, who he directed the pilot and served as an executive producer alongside Lauren Schuler Donner and Simon Kinberg, as well as Marvel's Jeff Loeb and Jim Chory. At the same time, it was just, like they were producers more for the people who, now, in your case, it did backfire. It was people who were the fans of the X-Men series. That was the tie. It was just the executive producers. Now, I want to hit real quick on something that Beat's putting out here about the fact that Lucifer and Gotham need probably a new home. No, they don't. Because of the fact that the deal excludes the Fox syndicated channel. So it excludes the Fox network channel. WB owns and is the one producing Lucifer and Gotham. So therefore, it's still them making the money, not Fox. Fox just got a little bit of it, but not the big cash cow sort of deal from my understanding. But anyways, back to here.
Just your point a little bit. If knowing that this Fox Disney deal has happened at this time, we've known about it for a few weeks now, and it's still going to go through legal wrangling and everything to make sure that it can actually happen, and money changes hands and contract signs and all that stuff. They did just announce that they're renewing The Gifted. So at this point in time, the Fox channel has a viewpoint of, this is stuff we will keep going, or this is stuff we won't keep going. If they feel that they can't make the deal work, those shows aren't going to get renewed. Yeah. So I feel right now, at least for the foreseeable, until stuff starts bleeding out of the contracts, or we get a nice, wonderful Sony hack, then it's not gonna. We're seeing that they think everything's kosher. Not to make this a Jewish thing, because Hollywood just. It was a term. So I'm just winning everything today.
Yeah, but back to The Gifted, because again, to sell you on this show here, it's a little bit more family drama than we have all this history with the X-Men that you have to worry about. Because really, you don't. You see, there are X-Men in there. Actually, I think the only one that's really in there is Blink.
Well, there's Blink. There's John Proudstar, which is Thunderbird. Or is it James Proudstar?
That one's son, I believe.
Son or brother?
He's a relative of Thunderbird.
Okay, so in the comics, Thunderbird was one of the original Uncanny X-Men when they came back, and Wolverine and Storm and Nightcrawler all joined the group. Thunderbird was part of that. He died shortly thereafter, and then his brother James came in later, was part of X-Force First came in as part of the Hellions, which was another team that Emma Frost ran. That was kind of like the other side of the New Mutants coin, and then he became part of X-Force later on. So, and I don't think he used Thunderbird at first. It was years before he wound up doing that. But
yeah,
and then isn't Lorna Magneto's daughter Polaris?
Yeah, Polaris. But really, that's it. I mean, everyone
which
else,
is still a lot, you know. But two of those characters, I believe, were in one of the X-Men movies. They were in the Days of Future Past, Blink, and I thought James Proudstar was one of the characters in that too. When they're all running through the future with Ellen Page suddenly having completely different powers as Shadowcat than she ever had before. I, for some reason, assumed that they were in that grouping, but maybe not, since it seems like, again, they had Kitty Pryde teleporting people stupidly and sending people back in time. Be that as it may, so that's getting renewed. And at this point in time, they think that everything's cool to renew it. So good, because it does seem to be getting a lot of people interested and excited. I've heard a lot of people are enjoying the show. It's just, for a number of reasons, I just didn't have the interest in it. Even though it's got some people I really like Amy Acker's in it. Amy Acker is terrific. I go back to when I first was watching her on Angel, and everything I've seen her in since. She's always fantastic.
Well, and Stephen Moyer, who was a part of your first I Ain't Got Time to TV, because and also has another X-Men connection because he's married to Anna Paquin. You know, he's big. He was the vampire on True Blood. Well,
if I was such a big fan, I probably would have timed the TV to get those middle episodes in.
But no, for me, I mean, the other part is you look at, this is going from the creator side, Matt Nix, who created Burn Notice. You see some people in here that were in Burn Notice.
Yeah, I was going to say I recognize one of the guys from
Kobe Bell came in late, midway through the season, or midway through the show on Burn Notice. He's the foil, and then you get a little cameo from the lady who plays Michael's mom on Burn Notice. Okay. She's in here as well. And I'm like, that's so cool. You know, it's like, it's one of those things, like, to me, it's like, okay, you see these people working with the guy that they worked with before. You know, it's sort of like, you've seen Thor Ragnarok, right?
Yes.
The lady who was the Grandmaster's sidekick, she's in all of Taika Waititi's movies.
Right.
And all that. It's one of those things. Or, you know, Brian Johnson appearing in a Kevin Smith movie. You know, it's gonna happen, sort of deal. But no, yeah, so the Gifted Series 2, and it's done good in the ratings. It's got it averages a 2.0 in the Live Plus 7 ratings,
which is a good reason to renew it.
Yeah. The other part on the renewal side is that this is coming from Hulu, actually, that Runaways and Future Man are both being renewed for second seasons at Hulu. Now, this is Marvel's big foray into their, yes, it is shared universe, but you don't have to worry about the fact that it's a shared universe with this, but this is actually airing through Hulu, not through an ABC solely owned property. I'm wording those carefully because after this deal, they're gonna own a majority of it. So Runaways, this is a show, and both seasons will consist of 13 episodes, which the Runaways actually had a 10 episode first season run, which is set to wrap up this tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday the 8th. And then Future Man's 13 episode first season debuted back in November.
Future Man has no association with Marvel, just so we make that clear.
No, Future Man is led by Hunger Games star Josh Hutcherson as a janitor and world-ranked gamer who is tasked with preventing the extinction of humanity as mysterious visitors from the future proclaim him the key of defeating the imminent super race invasion. This is actually done by Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and then Matt Tolmack and James Weaver. They're all executive producers of this show. I saw the pilot. It's really, really good, really funny. It's just one of those, there was so much on my plate, I just haven't gotten back to it. Where Runaways, instead of I got hooked on the first episode.
Now, you said that Runaways was airing weekly.
Yes.
So you watch it like you would a regular TV series. Is Future Man the same way? Is it playing weekly?
Future Man, they just dumped everything. It was like, boom, here are the first 13 episodes. Which Hulu, I guess, does it they sort of do it both ways. They do it the Netflix way, and then they'll do it the regular TV way. Just sort of depends on how it would work. Because for some shows, it would make sense.
It's weird because the expectations of TV are in a kind of flux right now, because it is that you get the Netflix shows that dump everything at once, and so you get this idea that you're going to splurge and watch all that, but then you've got the HBO shows that air weekly that I wonder, have people made a decision which is better for them, or is it based off the show? I think that obviously both these shows got renewed and they're doing two different things, even though they're on the same network with Hulu. It's just, it's surprising that one would go one way and one would go the other. And is that up to the production company? Is it up to Hulu? Who's making the decision? With Runaways, I could at least see, because it's a shared universe, saying, oh, well, we don't want to reveal too much from like episode 10, because even though it's not directly tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it maybe reveals things that we aren't ready to see revealed that might happen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something else. Or maybe it's just because they like having the weekly show as opposed to the all at once show. Yeah. But that's how they do it with the stuff on Netflix. Those things dump all at once. So I do think it's partially that's partially it, because I don't know, because you're right. You mentioned the Netflix shows where they just do, you know, full season, now go and binge, and it's these same production companies, because, you know, the Runaways is co-production of Marvel Television and ABC Signature Studios. Do you feel like it has anything to do with the target audience, which I'm assuming from the previews I've seen seems like it would be the freeform viewer, which would be Big Little Liars,
a little bit,
Separated to Birth, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because with the first 10 episodes, they're loosely basing it off of I believe they said the first part of the 18-issue run that Brian K. Vaughan did. And Brian K. Vaughan is an executive consultant on the show, actually, to further the Marvel connection, besides the obvious one of Jeff Loeb. Another producer on here is Rodney Barnes, who is writing Falcon right now over at Marvel. And because I remember watching the theme song, such a catchy, and it's just music, but just such a catchy thing. Like, it's playing in my head right now, but then again, I am a mental patient who just plays music all the goddamn time in his head. And it's like, I saw it when I'm like, wait, rewind, I recognize that name. And I
have a similar thing, except mine is choral singers that are telling me to kill everybody.
But I mean, the cool thing now, if you guys remember from, you know, when we were talking about this and we talked about the casting, about how, you know, I'm like, I don't know about, you know, Greg Sulkin playing Chase, because he seems like he's too muscular to play Chase and all that. Like, I'm like, no, give me a time machine so I can go tell that version of Greg to shut the fuck up, because this is excellent casting from top to bottom, the parents, everything. So cool. They do this interesting twist. Well, not twist, a different version of the fact that, you know, they don't say that Molly's a mutant. They did this twist with Carolina, with her parents and stuff like that, where I'm like, all right, this is cool. This is, you know, tweaking it enough to where the people who read the book won't be like, okay, this is where they're going to do this and they're going to do that. You know, it's just so predictable, but to where it's not completely separate from the comic itself. I love the show.
So you kept up with the show?
Yes. Yeah.
On the weekly basis, yes. Whereas you didn't keep up with the show that dumped all the episodes at the same time.
Well, you're right, but I think part of it was because of the fact that Future Man has an interesting premise, but not one that I'm like, all right, I'm gonna keep watching. Like, it was the ADD kicked in, and I'm like, all right, let's watch this or this or this and stuff like that.
So, do you feel that that's the reason why? If a new show comes out every week, and you know, I've just got this new hour to watch this week, then you feel that appointment television thing still, that tug of like, oh, the new Runaways is out, I want to go pop that on, and you're not stuck on doing it on their schedule. Like, you can watch it at 10 o'clock, you can watch it at 3 o'clock afternoon the next day or whatever. But it is the new one's out, I should go watch it, as opposed to, oh, here's 13 hours of this show that I can watch whenever I want to, then I'll get to it. Yeah. And that's more what I'm curious. It's not a criticism of how you're doing it or which one you chose. It's more of it's interesting that you chose to do it that way, or one more than the other. And it could also be the content too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to explain because, you know, I like the people involved. I like Josh Hutcherson. I like Eliza Coupe, and Derek Wilson. I think I know who he is. Um, and I like the producers involved with Future Man. But it's one of those like I'm not seeing advertisements when I'm watching other Hulu shows for the next episode. I'm using quotes because it's the episode that aired 2 weeks ago that they're showing on the next episode. So I'm like, your commercials are wrong. But it's also like if I just waited and like, okay, I'm gonna binge it later. Okay, I'll put it to you this way. Future Man to me seems more like the bingeable show. You know, like you could sit there and actually just just binge straight through it. Runaways, they do enough build up, like to where it's great week to week. So I really think that's what they're doing with this. It's like
does it leave it a hanging point like Game of Thrones or I assume Riverdale does or something like that, where it's like we get to the end and here's but coming up this new tense thing is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's
it's like a page-turning novel. You get to the end of the chapter, you're like, ooh, but what's about to happen next? And then you keep reading, which seems binge-worthy too. Stranger Things does that, but I get it. I think that there's a dedication that you have to have of like, this is going to be the next couple of days for me watching all of this and almost nothing else versus, in between watching reruns of this show and watching the mid-season premieres of the middle and other things on regular TV, I can flip over and go into this when there's the shows that I'm not that interested in for an hour and then pop back over to the stuff that I wanted to see again. Yeah, like I said, it's still kind of a new thing, and I'm wondering which is going to become the more predominant, or if neither does. If it's just that the type of show determines if it's one that lands all at once or if it's one that gets metered out. I still say that there's something of value to water cooler talk of a program, but there's only one or two shows that I think really get the effect from that, and they're The Walking Dead, which is happening less and less, and Game of Thrones, which is about to end in a year's time whenever it comes back.
2019.
I don't know that there's any other shows that I hear about like, oh my God, like I don't know anybody who watches Grey's Anatomy in my workplace, so I don't have people talking about Grey's Anatomy, but I know that there used to be a point in time where that was a regular thing. And it seems like the Shonda Rhimes shows are made for that. It's just a specific audience that doesn't seem to appeal to where I'm at. But there's not a lot of other TV where I'm hearing people say, oh my God, did you see this last night? And everybody's talking about it. And that's both a reflection of where broadcast TV is and where streaming TV is I'll hear people talk about the new Punisher series came out before I'll hear people talk about the new Blacklist episode.
So the next article that we got here, next bit of news we have, sticking with Hulu here, Animaniacs is being revived at Hulu with a 2-season order. Now, not only that, because that's not happening until 2020, but right now on Hulu, you can watch all of Animaniacs that they've made right now, all 99 episodes, plus Pinky and the Brain, plus the spinoff to the spinoff, Pinky Elmira and the Brain, and the complete Tiny Toon Adventures collection, all right now on Hulu. You can go do it right now. The cool thing with this is the fact that Steven Spielberg, who we'll talk about later on in the show, is coming back and executive producing alongside Warner Brothers Animation president Sam Register, Amblin Television co-presidents Justin Falvey and Daryl Frank. Pinky and the Brain will also return alongside the Warner Brothers Yakko Wacko and their sister Dot. So this was my childhood. I'm not gonna lie. There were times where I was like flipping between like, okay, commercial here, go over here, like between Fox Kids and WB or Kids WB, like all the time. And
I remember when Tiny Toons came out, and I was still a teenager at that point in time, probably, I want to say 15 or 16. Maybe it was even a little older. I just remember watching Tiny Toons and thinking it was the funniest thing. And then a few years later, Animaniacs came out. Now, we saw the commercials for Animaniacs, and we thought they were doing the Bosco black and white characters that were on a Tiny Toons episode when Babs Bunny was trying to find her mentor. But new characters introduced, and once I watched Animaniacs, Tiny Toons kind of became sort of quaint and childish, because Animaniacs did all this really great tongue-in-cheek stuff. There was the jokes that are over the kids' heads, but were like in jokes for the adults who happen to be watching with their kids. It was still really funny for kids, but as an adult, you watch, you go, oh, I know what they're talking about. And then it did all the Hollywood spoof stuff and other things that were more modern, having Bill Clinton play the saxophone over the opening credits or whatever. And then it went on to Pinky and the Brain having their spinoff show. And again, another level, because honestly, the Animaniacs themselves were great. Pinky and the Brain were fantastic. The other segment characters were very hit or miss, and honestly, mostly miss. Like, the amount of episodes of Good Feathers was just unnecessary, because it was the same jokes over and over again. It's the Joe Pesci bird getting pissed off and saying, "That's it," and jumping over and beating up the guy. The main character had no personality, which is kind of like a funny thing about Good Feathers too. And it just didn't add anything. The funniest thing I ever heard on those episodes was, "Are you cooing my bird? Are you cooing my bird?" I love that. I say that all the time. Rita and Runt. I love Bernadette Peters. She is a treasure to music and theater in general. Plus, she was in The Jerk and Pennies from Heaven, if you're into that sort of thing. Rita Runt was just a cat singing and a really terrible Rain Man ripoff. Mindy and Buttons was cute because Mindy was adorable because she kept calling her mom lady. But otherwise, same thing over and over again. Slappy Squirrel. She's cranky. Okay. I like Mime Time.
Do you have the page pulled up or something?
No, I memorized all this stuff, man. I like Mime Time because they're just the shorts. A good idea, bad idea, fantastic, but quick, But so much of the show was filler. You waited for the Animaniacs themselves, and hopefully it wasn't the one with the stupid Jerry Lewis ripoff, Freud and Laven, or it was Pinky and the Brain, and the rest of it was just kind of like, oh, well, I have to listen to them sing for 10 minutes, so I'm just gonna tune over to another station and see what's going on with the GoBots, which we're probably not playing at that point in time. My point is, if they're bringing it back, I hope they're bringing the better portions of it back, and they're creating new stuff to be a part of it. Now, because you said they get the rights to Tiny Toons and they get the rights to Elmira and the Brain, and you were hoping, although we haven't seen any evidence of this, that they would do something with Freakazoid as well. Maybe those other shows could be integrated into Animaniacs, and it could be a whole thing of like all the different Spielberg, Warner Brother cartoons that existed at that point in time.
Yeah.
Although I have to admit, as much as I love Freakazoid because it was a weird, wonky superhero type program, it's about the level as like Bonkers is to the Disney cartoons of the 90s, which was like, hey, we got Gummy Bears, and that begat DuckTales, and then we got Tailspin, and we got Darkwing Duck, and all these great shows, and then we finished off on Bonkers.
Yeah.
And Bonkers is not good.
Honestly, I look at this, and I'm excited for this because, again, like I said, this was my childhood. This was, now granted, I think it was in my area because this is back actually when, Saturdays actually played cartoons on the network. We had Nickelodeon, we didn't have cable at the time. Well, we off and on had cable, but it's like we had as an option, Nickelodeon and Disney Channel, and then we got Cartoon Network a little later on in my neck of the woods. But it's one of those things that it's like you still had the cartoons on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, it was like the last of them, because at this point in time we've already seen Saved by the Bell take over NBC's stuff. So NBC went to all teen programming, live action crap shows like Hang Time and whatever else, California Dreams.
Yeah, NBC was the first, and then I believe it was,
I don't remember CBS having much at that point, or if they did, it was probably a lot of imports.
It was tied in with Nick. Like they tied in with Nickelodeon at the time.
But didn't they play Mad Max or Mighty Max? That was a great show. That was a really great show.
But and then I think CBS went, and then I think it was Fox and ABC, then WB, because WB was the purchase and then making the CW and all that.
And, so and when they did that, they started doing a lot of things with Pokemon and stuff later on too.
Yeah,
and And that's the thing, is that the cartoons got segregated off into cartoon channels, but like you said, not everybody has cable. Not everybody has access to those things. So to lose that, that was my be all end all of Saturday mornings. I get up in the morning on Saturdays, and I get up early enough, and I'd catch Hot Fudge, which was a puppet style show that was not great, but that's the start of the day, and then it goes up through the better cartoons. Like once you get to Scooby-Doo or Super Friends and stuff, you had it made. But it was weird to see that all fall apart, and part of it was that I lusted for the Cartoon Network. I wanted that channel, and I didn't get it until well into adulthood. And I'm like, why can't we have all these channels and they won't give me the one good one? But I felt that way years later. If I would have given up Cartoon Network if I could have kept the old Tech TV. Yeah, I really hope that this turns out to be as great as it once was. I certainly loved the show. I loved the songs that were teaching you stuff about the countries of the world or whatever. Like that stuff is where the show really was magical. And it's funny because those things change, and you're like, oh, I want to go listen to the song. Oh, this is wrong. Oh, this is wrong too. But it's still just awesome how well they would do those things. It would involve education without overpowering you that you were being educated. And I thought that was really magical at that time.
That was one of the things I liked and with Tiny Toons, was the fact that they did like Tiny Toons versions of with using their actual songs of a lot of famous musicians. Like they did Aretha Franklin,
Particle Man with TMPG.
Well, they did Particle Man with They Might Be Giants, and Istanbul.
Well, not Constantinople. Yep.
But then they did Respect as well.
Yeah.
Because it's at my church with the old children's pastor that he would play when we were talking about Respect as the kids were coming in, was that clip from Tiny Toons Adventures. But I mean, it's like it was there, and then I know they did a little bit more over on Nickelodeon with Kablam, with They Might Be Giant songs, but it was those two shows, Kablam and Tiny Toons, that got me into They Might Be Giants.
Yeah, I'm from a generation or so before you, so my introduction of They Might Be Giants was when Weird Al used to take over MTV and do Al TV.
Yeah.
So the first time I ever heard of them was he played the video for Put Your Head Inside the Puppet Head. And I was just like, what the hell is this? Man, Al TV was the greatest thing ever. And then he had his own show on CBS for a while that was kind of like a different version of Pee-wee's Playhouse to a certain degree.
Yeah, that was on Hulu for a while as well. And actually, going back to Runaways, the bully on there plays one of the parents on Runaways. Yes. Great. Like I just did that. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, so this is exciting, and I keep waiting for the show that's going to get me to go all in on Hulu. Although you did say something earlier that again put that stick in my craw of you're watching it and you're seeing commercials for stuff, and I'm like, I still have a problem with the paying the exorbitant fee for Hulu compared to what I feel I get from other services. And that I'm always still going to have to deal with bullshit commercials with that. And just that bugs me. And I don't know why, because I love commercials. Mm-hmm. I love commercials. But I just need to know that they've cleaned up their act with how they do the commercials. I would rather watch commercial television and get a variety of commercials than what Hulu used to do, which was interrupt the show at an inopportune point and play the same commercial like 5 times. That was unbearable. Anytime I'm on a service that does that, like Pluto TV or whatever, some of the things that are on Roku do that, and I can't handle.
Yeah. So the actor I was talking about is Kevin Wiseman, who played Spike on Weird Al TV. It was his second gig that he got on TV. His first gig, he was on Frasier.
Oh,
yeah. It's cool to think of with all this stuff. But here we have some other news that might bring us some hope. He said, in a hopeful manner, and that is DC Films has a new boss, and this is Walter Hamada. He has been named the head of DC Films at Warner Brothers Pictures. This is all from Variety. He will also reportedly oversee other non-DC continuity comic book to film projects. So that would mean what? Vertigo, maybe Young Animals if they were to do those into movies.
Well, there's a lot of DC films that they've announced that we don't know if they're in continuity or not, like the Martin Scorsese, like announced as in a possibility, but the Martin Scorsese Joker movie, is that in continuity? They made hems and haws about if the Batgirl film is in continuity or not, if Shazam is in continuity with the rest of the DC film universe or not. So at this point in time, like, we don't even understand the status of what in continuity is after Justice League not doing what they wanted it to. And that's part of why Hamada got named, is because the guy who was there before had to kind of fall on his sword for the whole thing of a bunch of people saying, hey, we should keep using Zack Snyder, even though we all sort of agree that it's a mistake to do that. But we're just gonna roll with it and hope. And that blew up in their faces in much the way that was expected.
Yeah. So Hamada, which people probably will know some of the work that he's produced, because he produced this past year the remake of It, and he was producing on the first Conjuring movie. He co-wrote 47 Ronin, and then he's served as the VP of production over at Columbia Pictures. And interesting fact, he has a quote-unquote close relationship with Aquaman director James Wan after working with him on the Conjuring and Annabelle movies. The other part to note here is that Jeff Johns has reportedly segued to an advisory role at DC Films, but remains a president and chief creative officer at DC Entertainment. The other DC Films co-head, John Berg, has reportedly moved to become a producer with Lego Movie's Roy Lee.
Yeah, so the Jeff Johns thing, the first, when this first got talked about, there was a lot of talk that Jeff Johns has been ousted as well from the films, and it doesn't sound like that's actually the case. In fact, Jeff Johns, he tweeted congratulations to Hamada, as you do even if you did get ousted, and then he's like, now we got to get you on Twitter. And I feel like John's inviting this guy onto Twitter is like when you drink milk and you find out that it's spoiled, and then you go to your roommate or whatever and you say, here, drink this, where you just trying to spread the pain around. Like, what a fucking dick move to do. Don't go on Twitter, dude. You don't need that heat. You don't need that fucking abuse in your life. Plus, it's a shithole. But I do think that Johns is still a part of this. Maybe not to the degree that he was felt to be before, but John still has so much on his plate. And at the same time, like, there's a whole subdivision of DC that's happening with DiDio and Lee's new superhero universe thing that is basically a ripoff of Marvel the whole way through. And I wonder how much he's a part of that. Like, the guy seems like he's in so many different things. I would like to see him just concentrate on something at this point, or just give up the creative side and be the overseer. Because I don't feel like he can do any of these things well with the amount he has to do. Like, if Feige over at Marvel was in charge of the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then at the same time was trying to write Avengers, the comic series, and do another pet project with Marvel, like doing a Kamala Khan book or something like equivalent, like, hey, I'm going to write these two I'm going to write a really high profile comic and a lesser profile comic, but it's going to be big because my name's on it, while I'm also trying to oversee all this stuff over here. And then I'm also kind of an editor on some of the other books over here and stuff. Like, you would think, no, you should not do that. You should step the fuck back and do the thing that you're doing really well at, that needs your guidance the most. I love Jeff Johns. I think he's done some great work. I think he's done some less than stellar work too, but it's just been too much. Like, they put so much weight on this guy's shoulders, and I think that there's enough people, like what you said with Marvel. They've got Jeff Loeb, not my favorite creator, but Jeff's been in it for a long time. Jeff Loeb's in charge of the TV stuff, essentially, and Fahey's in charge of the film stuff. Johns is kind of like back and forth between all of that. I mean, we got Berlanti as kind of the overseer of most of the DC TV universe stuff, but that's because everything he's done has landed so far.
I think, isn't the only thing that Jeff Johns had with the DC TV stuff was Supergirl, isn't that right?
I think so. But again, that's too many things.
And Beats pointing out that Pearl Murder TV's Pearl Murder's Domain, where he is the president, the producer that everyone talks about is Jeff Loeb.
Yeah, Pearl Murder doesn't get his hands sticky, except for when he's shaking him with the president. But but Loeb is the creative sort of visionary type, the Fahey of the TV universe.
Yeah.
Or universes, because again, we're not seeing the interconnectedness of the TV shows to the same degree. Like some of them, yes, but not like what they have in the film universe stuff.
The other part with this that we're hitting at here is, like, I honestly, I agree with you. You know, like I feel like Jeff Johns, it's sort of like he's doing, you know, trying to do all these different things, and it's falling flat. Like,
I just don't know that it plays to his strength to put him in that type of position. I like Jeff Johns as a engineer of the universe for continuity and for, you have to get to the crux of who these characters are. Like, and I feel like Jeff Johns does get that. You know, as much as I don't necessarily love the whole bringing back of Barry Allen, he understands a Barry Allen character. He understands a Hal Jordan character. He understands a Superman character, a Batman. He knows what makes these characters who they are, as opposed to somebody who just comes in and says, I really like Batman because he's fucking badass and he kills people. Well, that doesn't seem right. I really like Superman because he's a proto-Jesus. No? I really like Wonder Woman because tits. You need to go away, please. So, like, that's kind of the thing, is Johns is the person who's like, no, I understand DC continuity. I understand DC characters. And if that's the part that he plays, great, you know, and get him all around. But I don't know that running a film universe in the overall vision of it, of the stories and everything, was necessarily a strength, especially when he was doing so many other things at the same time. You know, I don't know anything about Fahey before he started with Marvel films, but he's definitely been the right guy to oversee what that film universe is. And he's picked the right people, you know, for the most part, essentially, to make those movies. So great. And maybe Hamada is what they need at DC to do that now. I hope that they haven't set him up to fail. One, because we've had some major disappointments in the 3 out of the 4 major films, or 5 films so far, but also because they've got so many ideas spread out all over the place. Like, there's a Batman Sentinel movie that Ben Affleck is doing. No, Ben Affleck is not writing, directing, or producing it anymore with Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns again. Oh, but he'll still be in it. Well, maybe he won't be in it. Maybe he's not going to be Batman at all anymore. Well, there's this Batgirl movie that Joss Whedon is doing, and then there's this other 5 fucking Harley Quinn movies that may be happening, and Shazam, and is Flash happening? Is Flash not happening? Remember when we were going to have a Cyborg film? The fuck were we thinking? Like, all this shit. It's you're walking into what is just somebody threw Legos all over the floor and you're barefoot. And they're like, go find the ones that you need to make the Millennium Falcon, but no, you're not allowed to put on slippers.
So to answer your question on what all Kevin Feige's done, Marvel movies, like according to Wikipedia, it's, you know, it started back in '98 with Blade. He was an associate producer. Then, you know, X-Men, Daredevil, X2, Hulk, Punisher. He's done them all. Like, he was even an executive producer on Spider-Man 2. You know, he was a producer, co-produced The Incredible Hulk with Avi Arad, which he did, co-produced Iron Man as well, and also Gale Ann Hurd on The Incredible Hulk. But yeah, even on television, you know, Iron Man, Armored Adventures, Wolverine and the X-Men, Marvel's Agent Carter. He was executive producer on all those. So, I mean, he's basically done, you know, the Marvel stuff.
Yeah, executive producer is a little weird, but it is amazing that that's essentially where he got his start and what he's done the whole time. Which also makes me think, dude, what if this guy leaves? Because at some point you might get bored, but he keeps bringing out new shit that maybe keeps him from getting bored. Or maybe he just maybe he's one of those people who's actually content, like, with his success and says, this is great. Why the fuck would I ever give this up? Cold Dead Hand? You know, just some people, very rarely do you hear about the people who are like, yeah, I really love what I'm doing, and I just want to do this for as long as I can. Unless it's like, I had a shot at something else really good once, and then I felt like all uppity and I left it, David Caruso. And then I decided I needed to get back to something stable while someone was willing to give me the fucking chance again, Katherine Heigl. and please don't fire me from my show one more time, everybody at Fox. So
are you doing that Kevin Nealon bit from SNL? Is that what you're doing right now?
I wasn't intentionally, it just sort of happened.
But no, yeah, I mean, so this is pretty cool. I do like the fact that they have, it sounds like they might have someone here who can get an idea as to what the hell they want to do with these movies. The last bit of news, just real quick, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency has been canceled after 2 seasons. I'm of mixed message because where I liked the first season, I'm not 100% sure that I finished it, and I haven't even touched season 2.
I watched all of season 2.
Yeah. So I'm part of the problem.
I loved season 2, but it was very, very different from season 1, and it broke up the team, which they are often to do in second seasons. You can't just get everybody together and have them remain happy. But it did a lot of things that I was just so surprised about, and the world that they created for it was great. All the cast was excellent. It might be my favorite TV show of the season of this year. So I'm really bummed to see it go. And I also recognize that it's not very much related to Dirk Gently from the books. I read the books a long time ago, like in my teens, but I didn't have a huge problem with that, again, because it was a long time ago. And I think the show just built this great idea and ran off with it. I'm sad if it doesn't come back, like if it doesn't get picked up by Netflix or something else, which I would like to think that it could. They just brought the second season to Netflix this last week. So if you are interested in catching up on it, you should be able to.
Yeah.
But I also understand, it's on BBC America. It's hard for someone who isn't up to snuff with it to just jump right in. And it maybe isn't for everybody. It's a weird show. It's weird and quirky, and it's exactly what I liked. I understand also that there's some issues with Max Landis, and that might be part of it, much like a lot of other things going on right now, is if people's names suddenly disappearing off of their own work, or they lose their shows because it seems like people don't want to work with them.
Yeah.
I could see that being part of the problem. I hate to see the show punished if that's the case, because the show itself was, in my opinion, very fun.
But no, yeah, it's, I mean, honestly, it is sad to see that happen, but I mean, I honestly, I wish everyone involved with Dirk Gently the best of luck in their next project, which, I mean, if it's Elijah Wood, I mean, God, that dude does like everything.
He does show up in a lot, and that's one of the fun things about Elijah Wood, is that he'll pick the weirdest projects.
Well, yeah, not even just acting. I mean, if you listen to his episode or watch his episode of Talking with Chris Hardwick, where he talks about his, like, all of his different passions, I'm like, where do you find the time? I mean, God, and I thought Ryan Seacrest and Chris Hardwick were just busy little beavers, but good God, you put them to shame.
If you had the opportunity to do anything you wanted, that's kind of a statement about the kind of person that you are. If you had nothing holding you back, and if you had the money and people believing in you, and just in general, just you wake up in the morning and I could go anywhere, I could buy anything that I need to. I'm not worried about bills. I'm not worried about work stress or anything else. What do I choose to do with that?
Yeah.
And there are people who choose to do it all. You get your Renaissance men like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. You get people who could easily ride on the successes of being an actor, but then also produce, and then also write, and then also do all these other things because it's what they love to do. And then you get someone like me who takes a dozen naps because I love a good nap. Yeah, it's appealing.
Ladies and gentlemen, my co-host here, Garfield.
Brought to you by Casper Sleepbox. I look at that and I respect the hell out of it. I don't know that would be me, but if I woke up and I didn't feel the driving anxiety of my house is falling apart, my life doesn't really make a lot of sense, and I just keep waiting for the moment the wife is going to leave me, because why does she have to deal with this shit with me? Then I think I would probably pick up my guitar once in a while. I would probably, I would find the time to write, not constantly, and maybe not even for a living, maybe not even for publishing, but just to the joy that I get. I love to write when I'm doing it, but it's getting to that chair, it's getting to that desk and making that decision and feeling like I don't have a billion other things that are on my plate already that are far more important than my good mental health. Maybe I would do those things, or maybe I would watch all of American Gods like I wanted to and just haven't gotten around to it yet. There's a lot of compelling things to distract, but the distractions are usually because you can't deal with so much of the real shit at once. And if I wasn't distracted, would I be better or would I be the same? And I can't tell you that I would be a better person. This might be the person that I'm supposed to be. I don't hate it. I'd like to make subtle changes. But man, that you see the people who just do it all. And it's easy to make fun of a Ryan Seacrest because he's just so overexposed, or Chris Hardwick because you turn on your TV and he's fucking everywhere, and you're like, fuck that guy. I got to watch another goddamn Chris Hardwick show. No, there's nothing wrong with those people. They're up there because they're good at what they do, and they do it. They put in the fucking work. That's something to respect.
So that's going to do it for the news. And if you want to help us out, help us keep the lights on so we can keep on ranting here.
You want to take a little bit of stress off of Corey's plate.
Yeah. You go over to gncast.com/support. And over there, you'll find our Patreon page where you can, donate money to us, and it keeps us, going, and, helps us just keep the lights on here at the studio, just keeping the WordPress going, all the plugins for it, and, the paying the fees for the domain so that GNcast continues to go to us and doesn't go to a porn website or whatever. But yeah, that's all that stuff can be found there.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's gncast.com.